So up until now, we've only used Git to manage a local repository. But Git is intended for collaborative work, where you can share your repository with others and each person can modify it in their own right and save their changes so that everyone can see what's happening. To do this, we need to use online Git hosting services like GitHub. So the way an online servicing works in this respect is each person will have access to their own private copy of the repository on their own computer. And they can make changes, commit changes, and upload those changes to the same repository that everyone has access to. You can then see the entire log of every person's changes, and you can pull and push those changes into your private copy to view them and modify them. So when you're working like this, the workflow becomes a little bit more complicated than what we've seen previously. So the workflow is generally you will first clone a repository. Clone simply means to copy a repository from online and to your local directory. Then you will want to pull changes from the GitHub. So that just means download all of the possible changes that people have made online into your private copy. Then you can start making changes to the source code. Once you're satisfied with your changes, you will commit them and push them to GitHub so that others can see them. The push part is very important. It's different from a commit. Commit will save the copies locally, and push will upload that commit online so that users can see it. So let's demonstrate this workflow by cloning a repository, making some changes, and pushing those changes to GitHub. So to demonstrate that process, what I'd want to do is first create a repo on GitHub exclusively. So on the online hosting service, I'll create a repository. To do this, I just go to my main GitHub profile, and in the top right, there's a little plus symbol that I can use to create a brand new repository. So new repository, and we can set it up. So this is just going to be Git demonstration will be the name of my repository. You can add a description if necessary. I will do that for this one. So demonstrate the workflow of version control with Git and GitHub. You have an option to make it public or private. So if you want to have a private repository, you actually have to pay if you're using GitHub. So public means open source, so it's accessible to the entire public. You can choose to use a README that is auto-generated, or we can just create the repository as is. Other options are to create a gitignore file, which I'll talk about later, and a license for public usage. Let's just create an empty repository. So we've created this empty repository online, and now we're able to actually clone it to local computers. So let's do that. In order to do it, we actually have to have the address of the online hosted repository, and that is stored here. https github.com/username/ the title of our repository. So I want to copy that to clipboard and paste it into our command line system when we're cloning the repository. So I'm now back in my Windows Explorer menu, and I want to put that repository right here in its own folder. So what I need to do is git bash right here where I want the folder to exist. And the command I'm going to type in is git clone space our online address for the repository. So the online address for the repository, hopefully we can right click and paste if you've done that. So you want to make sure that you copy it to the clipboard so that you don't have to retype that long address in. So it's git clone and then the address of your repo. And the Git management system will clone that entire online repository to a folder at the current directory. So as you can see, it's a Git repository because it has our hidden Git folder. And now we're up to date. We can start making changes and then saving those changes. So as before, I might want to add in a new file. I'll just call this, again, a README file. And that will be the change that I make. So the workflow now will be, as before, git status. So what occurred here is that my git bash is actually still open on the root of my USB drive. the git bash is not currently inside of this repository. So you'll find that your git commands will not work if you're not in a valid git repository. So what I need to do is actually make sure that I open git bash inside of the git demonstration folder that I just created. So git bash here. And now I can actually use valid commands such as git status to check the status. And as you can see, I added a README file, and I need to do what? I need to commit that change and add it. So the very first thing will be add all files, and then I want to commit, git commit -m, and my message will be added README file. And the commit works successfully. I can check the status by going git status. It says it's up to date, and I can check my log of commits that I've done locally using that command. But the job is not done. In order to see those changes reflected on my online repository, I need to actually upload those changes. So the way I do that is using the git pull and push commands. So our final two commands are git push origin master and git pull origin master. The first uploads changes to GitHub, and the second downloads changes from GitHub. So let's actually demonstrate those two commands. So I've made a change and I want to upload it to GitHub. Git push origin master. So you may have recalled that our branch is on the master branch, and we're at the origin of the master branch. So these keywords are mandatory to make this command work. Git push origin master. It may take a bit of time, and eventually Git will tell us that it has been successful in uploading our changes to the Git repo. So let's actually have a look at those changes online. If we refresh our view of the Git repo, as you can see, we've added in a new file to the repository, and there is now a commit that exists. So we can view all of the commits. This is the commit message that I typed in, the commit ID, and so that's how it works. So whenever you do your basic workflow, you'll want to pull changes, modify your code, commit changes, and then push those changes. So that's the very basic workflow for online Git hosting.